Hello everybody, I'm Anca Luca from the XWiki project. I'm also working for the XWiki SS company that sponsors the development of the XWiki project, and I'm here to talk to you about things with Ludovic.
I'm Ludovic. I'm the creator of the XWiki software. I'm also the CEO of XWiki and working at XWiki. So XWiki is a 40 people company working all on open source for the last 17 years, and we have created two open source software, which are XWiki, as our company is named. XWiki is a wiki. It's made for information management and helping people organize and share information. And we also do a second software, CryptPad, which is a real-time collaboration platform, including end-to-end encryption, mostly around document editing, but all types of document, including Office documents. So today we're going to talk about XWiki, the software, as a free and open source software alternative to Confluence and Notion.
Wait. So before you start talking about alternatives, I'm actually rather bothered by this positioning of open source software always as alternatives of proprietary solutions. All that open source does is copy existing things. We don't create any value. We don't do nothing new. We just make free what other people are charging money for. So I'm a bit bothered by this way of presenting things.
So, well, no, open source is able to have innovation and create new things, and we'll show that. But the fact of positioning a lot of open source software as alternative is a pragmatical use of marketing budgets. Open source projects don't have a lot of marketing capability. And which is to the contrary of some very large companies that have raised a lot of money and they have huge marketing budget. They're positioning their software, so a lot of people know their software and they don't know the open source alternatives, even when these open source alternatives have existed before. And so by positioning the open source software that we do as alternatives, even if they have been there for a long time, is a pragmatical use of the marketing budget. But there are many open source creations that have existed. And one of them is actually the wiki.
Oh, the wiki. You mean the thing that was created when some people from around this table were adults, but not all of them? Tell us more about it, Ludovic, since you know about it.
Yeah, so what are wikis? So a wiki, the definition of a wiki is a hypertext publication collaboratively edited and managed by its own audience directly using a web browser. So this definition you can find on the Wikipedia page, which is a wiki itself. So what's important in a wiki is the fact that you have an audience that reads documents, but they can also edit these documents. And what's important is that it's also hypertext. That means you have links between the documents that are showing up. So if we look a bit at the history of wiki, so wikis were invented in 1994 by Ward Cunningham, and the software was made open source. And actually there's been for many years a lot of open source software that were created to create wikis. XWiki is one of them in 1997. It's actually one I used before creating XWiki in a company. We implemented a XWiki, and we started collaborating around content using this open source software. You have JSP Wiki, another one that is that has been known in the Java world in 2001. Actually, MediaWiki, the software that is behind Wikipedia, was created in 2002, and XWiki, the one I created, was created at the end of 2003. It's actually later that proprietary software picked up on the wiki concept, and they tended actually not to call these wikis. They tended to want to establish their own brand. Atlassian Confluence was created in March 2004, I remember also JotSpot, which had a lot of similarities with XWiki in 2005, was actually acquired by Google, which launched Google Sites in 2008, not actually using all of the things that JotSpot were doing and just creating their own version of wikis of Google. And today, one wiki that is very much known is Notion. It's not called a wiki either, but it is a wiki if you consider the definition, was created in 2016.
But this basically, so I understand, wikis were created a long time ago in the open source world, and now they have become some sort of a tool that is used more widely and copied by proprietary software. So how did this evolve? How did these things evolve into all sorts of software?
Yeah, so wikis have evolved a lot in terms of functionalities since the beginning. Like the first wikis were purely text wikis. You were editing using wiki syntax only. They had quickly history that has been a very important feature of wikis.
The fact of coming back to an older version of what was edited collaboratively by people.
Yeah, that's a very important feature because it allows to have a lot of security in giving a lot of people the right to edit. If you give the people right to edit, they might make a mistake, and the fact of having the history will allow to fix these mistakes. But then wikis started to get the possibility of adding attachments, files, to have search features, comments, then a Wysiwyg Editor to make it easier to edit documents. Then we had some additional features that came in. It's a notion of macros. Actually, Twiki, for example, had macros. That's how I discovered. Some macros were just used to present internal data. For example, you could have a macro that allows to display the search results from the wiki inside a page. Or you could have external macros, so macros that would help you integrate external data in wiki. So for example, a query to a database or to an external tool. You had also wikis that integrated access rights. And then you started having UI improvements to make it slick and allow you to look your wiki, but also to make your wiki very easy to use. Then another type of feature that was also developed in wikis is the notion of structured data. We'll come back to that a bit later. And some real-time features, the ability to edit at the same time on wiki documents.
So if I understand correctly, at this point, wikis have started as wikis and evolved into tools for collaboration and organization of text and structured data. Like on one side, you have the knowledge. So the objective of all these tools is to capture knowledge and to help people work with it. So on one side, you have the knowledge that is captured as content in different forms. It can be free text, it can be files, it can be macros that integrate some external source, it can be database-like content, which is something that people have the tendency to want to create rather quickly in such a tool, like organizing things on tables, basically. It can be represented as a spreadsheet, it can be represented as a database, everything is possible, basically. And so on one side you have the knowledge, and on another side you have all the features to operate this knowledge, which are around collaboration and organization. Creating the data, updating the data, finding the data, navigation, organization in order to find it easier, sharing it, reacting. So this includes all the access rights, all the users, like all these tools that allow people to come and work with this data together. So basically today we have all these set of software which are like wiki based that are answering this use case of collaboration and organization on text and structured. So if we want to look at Confluence, how is Confluence answering this use case?
Wait. So when you're saying, when you're explaining a wiki like that, wouldn't be Google Docs a wiki also?
Well, it is collaboration and organization on text and structured data if we look at it at the global use case, and if we look at how people use these tools like Google Docs, they are using it for this, for putting content and finding that content. However, the tools that surround this content and the way the content is presented make it more or less of a wiki. For example, the fact that I don't know, history is there, but is not necessarily a first thing that you find when you look at it. The fact that by default you edit. The fact that documents are owned by people in Google Docs, like it's somebody's document that they share with other people, and not everybody's document. These kind of pushes this tool. Although it is about collaboration and organization, it kind of pushes it a little bit aside. It's not necessarily a wiki, but it is indeed answering this use case. And in a general discussion about how to answer this use case, it's worth being mentioned. But let's get back to wikis and to Confluence. How is Confluence answering the use case of collaborating on text and structured data?
Well, so Confluence, we will show it here, is allows you to organize documents in spaces. So you can create a space, invite some people to this space, and in this space you will have a collection of pages actually organized in a tree here, and you can create a new page. So let's look at the process of creating a page. Here, if I create a page, a demo, I can actually type this is some nice content in my page. So this is I can do quite a lot of things. I can also so I can create a link. That's actually an important feature of wikis. To make a link to another page. So for example, here I can make a link to the tests area. I can put some standard content, list item 1, so I have a Wysiwyg editing experience here. I can even create some tables, table 1, I can use multimedia content. So for example, here I can upload an image, which I can resize or decide to show on the left here. So I can also attach some additional files. I can also use mentions. So for example, here I can notify somebody about this document. This document is interesting. What else can I do? And I can use title items. So I can use subtitles. For example, here I can create a section on my document. So quite a lot of features. The next step is that I can actually use some macros in the tool. So for example, here I can use an information panel to display information. So this is still in Wysiwyg. There are some more advanced macros. For example, I could use a table of content if I can find it. TOC table of content here. This will make a display of the titles and subtitles of the document. So I cannot see the result of this right away. I need to save to see the results. And I have some more advanced macros. For example, I can embed a draw.io diagram. So here I can decide to make a diagram. So that's a macro for a second tool. So let's take this example here. I can publish it as is, so I can modify it and I can publish, and I can see my diagram in the page. And you have some macros like that could also access in external tools. So I can save my document. This document will show up in my tree here. I could create some sub pages also on this document. There are some collaboration features around the document. For example, I can make some annotations. Actually, I think I clicked the wrong button here. I need to do that. My comment. And I can look at the attachments, for example. I can see the row IO diagrams. I can also look at the page history for this document. Actually, only one version of that document. So that's a bit of an overview of what Confluence does with.
So you can basically create pages that contain text in various different forms of that text. You can put media. You can put diagrams, which is a form of text in a way. Okay, so in XWiki you can do rather similar things. You have the tree of pages here. And you can create a new page, but it is actually from here, from the button on the top right. You can create a page. We're gonna call it demo as well. And you have templates to choose the type of page that you want to create. This is like a nice feature where you can guide a little bit the creation of the content in your wiki to your users. So here we have the same. We have a Wysiwyg Editor. You have a Wysiwyg Editor. You can create pages. You can create titles. You can create bulleted lists. As you may have guessed, this is not my keyboard, so this is a consequence on typing. You can add multimedia stuff. For example, we can choose the same beautiful picture and add it here in the center. We can also resize this page. This image. It's here. And you can save this and look at the page. And now if you go back to edit mode, you have this beautiful inline editing mode that shows you the page in its final form while you're editing it. As you have seen in Confluence, you can also add links here. For example, we can add a link to the main page or to the sandbox, for example. And also you can also mention people like you could do in Confluence. I wish I could find that key. Okay, thank you very much. You can mention people here, and you can also add all these macros that we have seen in Confluence that were really nice before. You have also the info box, like the formatting macros. You can also add more complex macros, such as, for example, displaying the table of contents, as you've seen in Confluence. But I wanted to show you, for example, a macro to display the children of the current page from the hierarchy of pages. It's going to be empty here, but if you create a sub page, it's going to show it in the tree. So just as in Confluence, you have the richness of the macros that can be used. You have some interaction between users with the mentions. You have all the things from the text formatting that you can imagine, and you can organize this as a tree of pages. Now, I know that in Confluence it is possible to edit the same page in real time between two users. How about what's the state of this in XWiki, Ludovic? So
we cannot talk about real time without actually talking about the CryptPad project, which is another project from XWiki, because this is actually how we started this project. It's by researching how to do real time editing in a wiki. So we started this quite a lot of time ago. Real time editing is not something simple. There are a lot of complexities to handle. how to handle conflicts when people are editing at the same time on the same area. And so this is why we had a funded research project to work on this technology, and we created a prototype platform to show the technology. And one thing we realized when we were working on this real-time technology is that the algorithm that we had created at XWiki for real-time editing, it was actually serverless. Not all algorithms of real-time are serverless, in a sense that they don't need the server to handle the conflicting and the conflicts between the users. And we realized we could use end-to-end encryption, and this was actually very interesting because we could develop new types of application in an end-to-end encrypted system, which you all know will protect privacy in a much better way. And so
that's a very elaborate way of saying that XWiki doesn't have real time, but it has a new product.
It has a new product, and so we're very proud of this new product. And you maybe have seen a presentation in this track before on the status of CryptPad, which has evolved into a global, much more advanced platform in terms of end-to-end encryption with multiple types of documents and other features. But we actually, as part of the research projects, we did an experimental integration in XWiki, in version 9x of XWiki. But this experiment at the end of the research project had some conflicts with modifications in XWiki 11. And so as part of the cycle for XWiki 13, we decided that the XWiki core team should take over this real-time module, and we should make real-time a more prevalent solution inside XWiki. And we have actually released the first official extension in the last trimester. So let's look actually at this feature.
Let's check it out. That's an interesting thing to see.
So we have actually installed the real-time extension in this wiki and activated it. And Anca will join us in an editing session. So I'm going in editing mode here. And we have an editing session together. So I can actually go full screen here, and I can start typing. This is some content that I'm typing. And in the meantime, Anca can also type. And while Anca is typing, I can change the image size up. I can type in the second table, and now I can type myself. I can change the headings. I can even make a link to a separate page here up, and Anca can change the image size in the meantime. This is some content that I'm typing. Seems like Anca has added an emoticon. So we
that's
can.
What happens when you edit the same
rogue
line.
People.
Yeah, when you allow rogue people and when you edit the same line with
So you
other
can
people.
actually change the size of an image.
I did.
Also,
I did, but you were adding links. That's why people didn't see it on the demo. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we see it. We see it happening in real time, and we can actually save the document now, and we can see the results of this real-time session.
Yeah, that was really fun. But real-time and editing documents and creating content and creating content together is not all that this is about. There's also lots of other features that are needed in a wiki that in order to find the data and to work with it. For example, search, navigation by document tree, accessing like people's access to the wiki, which involves authentication and authorization.
Actually, on authentication and authorization, this is something that's extra payment on Confluence. For example, if you want OpenID authentication or SSO, you will have to take an additional service. In XWiki, it's an extension that is part of the system. And for authorization, like if you want to have edit rights on documents for view and edit, or if you want to have a subset of your documents that are limited to a certain number of people, well, it's a standard feature in XWiki, and you would have to have a premium offer on the Confluence side.
It is true that the authorization engine of XWiki is rather powerful and it can do lots and lots of things. Even if in a wiki, it should be enough to have everybody editing the pages, because that's the spirit of the wiki, right? So in terms of the search and navigation, as far as I've checked, it's very comparable what Confluence provides and what XWiki provides. There's also notification on content changes, which is also rather comparable. You can have notifications in XWiki, for example. You can be notified in the browser or receive an email about the things that have changed in a wiki, and many more tools like this that allow you to work with the text content that you have created. There are some things about all these tools around the data and the tools around the data that other things don't have. XWiki, for example, it has preserved the wiki syntax, which Confluence did not, for example. So not only you have the Wysiwyg, but you also have the possibility to type wiki syntax for people that love to do that kind of thing and to write things quickly in the browser. Also in XWiki, you can actually do scripting in wiki pages. For example, maybe you don't have all the macros that Confluence has, but you can write your own scripts to replace those macros. You open up a wiki page and you start typing a script in languages that are available, which are Velocity, Groovy, Python, and I think that's about it, to do things with the data of the wiki or with external data inside your page. You don't need to reboot, you don't need to do whatever stuff to take that into account. It works directly. You also have lots of presentation customization. The way your wiki looks, it's possible in Confluence to change the colors and logo, probably things like that. In XWiki, it goes way beyond colors and logo. You can add your own layers of CSS if you want. You can also change the layout completely. For example, the de facto project, the de facto observatoire for fact-checking of France is built with XWiki. You can see a screenshot of that on the right. It doesn't look at all as the tool that we have just shown you. It looks completely different, and it's a capacity of XWiki to do that kind of stuff. And it also has structured data, which, as far as I've seen, I haven't seen in Confluence. So, tell us a little bit about what is structured data in XWiki, Ludovic, since you have created this structured data at the beginning of XWiki.
Yes, so structured data is actually a very important feature in XWiki. It was the main reason for me to write XWiki. Is that I felt that there was a need for documents to go beyond just the notion of text and to have more structure. So instead of having just a standard page, is to consider a page as having typed metadata information in addition to the free text. So you will have for example, if you want to have a project page would always have a project start date, end date, a status, a project manager. By using these metadata, we're increasing the expressivity of the knowledge, both at creation and retrieval time. So when users create the information, they know what they have to fill in about a certain type of page. And when for navigation and also retrieving the information, the actual metadata and the structure of the metadata will allow to do new things that will help the navigation in the information. It is key actually for the organization of knowledge, and this has actually been a core feature of XWiki since the beginning in 2003. So structured data is something that was completely part of the product right at the beginning.
The database-like data that I was mentioning when I was talking about the use case of collaboration around text and structured data. You have these columns which are named and which have types, and the rows that correspond to that.
So let's look at the demo.
Yeah, let's go. So in XWiki, if you want to create structured data, in XWiki we present structured data as an application, because basically this will create a collection of pages that will all resemble each other, and some tools to manipulate those kind of pages that serve a specific purpose. So we call that an application. So if you want to create an application, you go here, you do create your own application. It's called up within minutes because it literally takes minutes to create an application. And here you can type the name of the application. We're going to create an application to store data about the conferences that we participate to. And now you find yourself in front of a screen that allows you to structure your pages, basically. You can add a title, for example, which is going to be the title of the page. You can add a date of the conference, for example, and you can change here the name. You can call that conference date, for example. Okay, you can then for example, add a budget that the presence at the conference would require. You can then add whether it's online or present, which would be a checkbox, like a Boolean. Remote, yeah. And then you can, for example, you can also add like a category or a type of conference. Is it a dev conference? Is it a business conference? Or what kind of conference it is? And here, for example, we would want to customize these choices. So we have the values here, the possible values, and we're going to add new ones. We deleted the default ones and we're going to add new ones. We can have a dev conference, we can have a business conference, or we can have an other conference. And here as well would be the place where you would mention whether you can check multiple, whether you can choose multiple values or not. We validate our changes and we're going to see our category. And in the end, actually not in the end, before the end, we can add also data from the wiki as a metadata of this application. For example, the user that is responsible of handling this, this conference. Okay, and in the end, we can add a field to handle the comments, for example, or anything else. This field is actually the the content of the regular page that is enhanced with the metadata. Okay. So we can also configure the date format here. We can say that we only want dates without the hours and the minutes, and we also can configure that if it's left empty, it's not filled in with today. So all the properties that we can add here, all the structure, the elements of the structure that we can add here have their configuration area that allows to configure in detail how they should behave. This screen is about how the data will be created for this application, where it will be created and how it will be handled. It's the template for the creation of the page that I was showing you just before. The stuff that we fill in here will impact how that template behaves. For example, you can configure where the pages should be created, whether they should be created in the tree that is called conference or somewhere else. For now, we're going to leave it like this. There's a lot of implications of this screen about where to create pages, but I won't get into details now. And the last step of the wizard of the creation of the application is the home page of the application. On the home page, you have a description of the application that Ludovic is kindly filling in now. And we also have the possibility to configure a table of the data, a table that the data, where the data will be displayed. For example, we want to see the conference date right next to the page title. We won't care about the page location in the wiki because we're all going to put them in a single place. We don't care about the date of the last modification of the document. However, what we would want to have the category in this table, and we'd also want to see the responsible person in this table. Is there anything else interesting? Yeah, why not the budget? Budget is always interesting. And we can also choose a beautiful icon for our conferences. For example, we could choose the briefcase, because everybody is going to a conference with a briefcase. So now we're done with the creation of the application. This is the homepage that we have created. And you can start adding entries to your application. For example, you click entry, you see the template for the conference, and we are going to create our first page that is going to be a conference page. This time, not a simple page of the wiki, but a conference page. And as Ludovic was mentioning about the structured data, you now are seeing a form with typed data in it. Not a text page as you would see before. Let's fill in a budget here, because FOSDEM is nicely free, and we thank the organizers for that. It's a remote conference, and the responsible is myself, for example. We can add comments.
And here it's a complete Wysiwyg field.
Yes, the content of the page behaves as a content of a normal page, which is actually a full Wysiwyg with all the features of the Wysiwyg that we've seen before.
I see also a full screen button. Actually, can you can actually go edit in full screen?
You can actually go and edit in
Can we insert images there?
We can also insert images. People are gonna get tired of this image.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe we should have added a FOSDEM logo.
Maybe we should have added a FOSDEM logo. I agree with you. So now we have our page, which is structured also for retrieval. We can see the information here.
And what are these little edit buttons?
You can actually edit the data in here. For example, if you decide that you need to pay yourself a beer, you could add 4.5
or if you make a donation to...
Or if you make a donation to the organizers, you can add a small budget there. Okay, so now we have added our data, and we can see it as a table data. We can add another entry just to see how it works. You can add OS6Pay. Now it's a different screen because we went through a different button, but it does exactly the same. Let's say this one is a business one. Let's say that Ludovic is responsible for this one, and it's not remote, and the date is
1st of December.
I don't know, 1st of December last year, for example. Okay, and let's save. So this data that we have entered as a structured data, we can see it as structured data in the table here. This is the component of organization of the data that Ludovic was mentioned. You can actually see it as a table, and you can actually, because it's filtered and because it's structured and it's strongly structured, you can actually
oh, by the way, it's a dev.
Yeah,
let's edit again.
Let's edit it again. You can actually modify this data, and you can actually filter this data by all these criteria, which are strongly typed, so the filtering is very strong as well. For example, you can sort by the budget because it's interpreted as a number. You can filter by the, sorry, this is not metadata, this is metadata. You can filter by the responsible as a user, and you actually have the list of users to choose from, because this is strongly typed data.
You can filter by text also.
And you can also filter by the text in the title of the page.
And actually by dates, look, last 30 days.
I have made a presentation at FOSDEM about how to create structured applications 2 years ago, if I remember correctly, with a business about creating jam out of fruit. So if you want to know more about this, you can go and check out that video about how to create applications and how to install existing applications to answer your needs.
You need to scroll down a bit here to say okay, apply.
Okay. Does this remind you anything, Ludovic?
Yes, so this is actually quite interesting. This is a bit looks a bit similar to a table feature we've seen in Notion, which is an online tool that seems to have
maybe you should show us how does that look.
Some press recently. Yeah, so if we look at Notion, there is a similar feature, which is adding a table. and so if I create a document here and say conferences,
this also looks a bit like a wiki. Like you have pages, you have text.
It's a bit the similar thing, and actually there is something they call database, if I did it correctly.
Yeah, it was the first option, table database inline.
Yeah, so I can actually put a database here and say it's conferences. And what I can do is I can actually manipulate the fields. So what is a bit different from XWiki here is that we're manipulating the fields directly from
So
the Wysiwyg interface.
Directly from the table that
From
we
the
had in
table
XWiki
itself.
to look at the data. But here you actually, it's also a tool to edit the data, right?
Yeah, so you can actually, but you can say the types in the same way. So it's very similar here in a sense. You could say select, and in here you can say remote, and you can say it's a boolean. Do they have
Checkbox? Yeah, it's called checkbox.
Then you can say responsible, and you can say it's a user person. And what else did we have?
We had lots of things, but maybe you shouldn't add all of them, right?
And so what's interesting there too is that you can actually fill in the data directly. So here, so it's a bit different on the category field, because it's any user can actually add categories. So you cannot like constrain the categories to a set of limited categories. But it's very very fast to fill in data.
Yeah, so they have a somewhat a different vision of how some typed data should behave. Basically, it's a little bit different from XWiki. Yeah. Some of them. Okay.
And here I can say who's responsible.
So how can you access the data that you've entered?
So it's actually available right away, and it's like here I can search it, so I can filter the data from this field, or I can make a filter function.
Yeah, there.
So here I can say let me. So it's a bit more complicated. You can say filter me the category dev. So that works.
Right.
And then I need to re-click and remove the filter if I want to come back. So I can have this filter. I can probably sort too. I can say add a sort by name, and it's already there. So I could say descending. So it's really data.
Structured data, database like structured data, basically.
So another aspect is that,
does this data exist outside of this database, basically?
Well, sort of. It exists here as a sort of a page, so you can open it as a page, as an individual page. So potentially you can link it to other users.
And you can add content to it?
Yes, and you can actually also add any content in the page.
So this is also a bit similar to what XWiki does.
This is very very similar to XWiki. You have the same type of thing. So if you modify it, so here I have modified remote now.
But you don't see it in the tree of pages on the left.
Yes, so this seems a bit more complicated. I don't know exactly.
Maybe you should unfold
you
conferences.
No, you won't see the pages that are there. You see the table.
So it's not necessarily first-class citizens. These pages are pages, but
it's unclear.
It's unclear whether they are handled as the other pages or not.
It seems you can copy a link, or you can add it to your favorites here, and it shows up in my favorites. But so it's unclear if you can do more with it. But what's sure is that it's data, and it's similar to what we have in XWiki.
It's a really interesting take, this way of seeing data like a spreadsheet. Like more closer to a spreadsheet, so closer to what some people may expect. So in the case of XWiki, because since we've talked about it, the entries of the application are first-class citizens. You can find them here. You can access them here as individual pages. You can do with this page whatever you can do with any other page, and you can also see them in the navigation on the left.
They also have a history.
They also have an individual history, each one of them, and
that's actually a good question. On Notion, it's unclear if such a page has a history.
Does anything have history in Notion?
Yes, there is history. Page history.
Right.
Version is you have to pay for it.
You have to pay for
unfortunately,
history.
we won't know.
Okay.
So it's unclear if you have the history on a per page basis or for the whole database.
Now, regarding this way of seeing the data as a spreadsheet and editing it as a spreadsheet, because that's a difference. XWiki, like we have seen that at XWiki. We have seen that it's an interesting feature. We have seen that it's very interesting to present the data as a spreadsheet, because people see their data like that, and whether we like it or not, they are used to such tools, to spreadsheet tools.
Yeah.
We may say all the worst, all the bad things in the world about a certain office suite, but spreadsheet is a powerful tool, and it allows people to express a knowledge in a certain way. So at XWiki, we looked at what Notion has done, and we also looked at what we are feeling that we need for this data, and we have developed this new tool that is called Live Data, that you can actually activate on an application using a parameter in the browser, and it will become by default in a while, as soon as it's going to be finalized. And this tool, basically, it's very similar to the previous table that you've seen, but it has this thing about editing data directly in the table. You may believe that it didn't work, but it actually worked. It's related to the type of field that I've chosen, which is not multiple select, and yet I've selected 2 items. So it's a matter of how we structured the application, not a matter of the functioning of the table. You can change, for example, we can add budget here. Let's put, I don't know, things like that. So you can edit the data directly. You have also the powerful feature filter that we've seen in Notion. It's so powerful that I cannot speak while I'm using it, so it takes all of my brain, apparently. You also have an interesting view in a different way as cards, where you can see the actual entries in the table as cards rather than table. And we also have the sort. You also have the possibility to hide or show different properties and to change their order, for example. All of that while still keeping the view with entries in the table as first-class citizens. So at XWiki, we took what we had, which was structured data in pages that allows to organize data better, and we said, okay, we're gonna add this layer of UI that is nice to use. And people find themselves comfortable using that kind of UI. The plan is to also add the possibility to add a new entry directly from here, rather than going through the menu as we've shown you before, and also to add multiple types of views. For example, a Kanban view that would group the entries by a category or something, which is also something that exists in Notion.
And the possibility to add columns and modify the data model.
Indeed.
So this is actually one of the big features, and so this is why it's because there are a lot of features that we actually rewrote the table module, which was called Live Table, into live data. Because we decided to use Vue.js as a technology to manage the table on the client side in JavaScript, and it will give us the capacity to really add much more advanced feature. And we've also written new APIs to manipulate the data on the server side. So we find the UI very interesting, and XWiki has all the data on the server side to manage this, and it's just significant work on the UI side, and we're working hard to make it happen.
So in the end, with all these tools that are similar somewhat, different somewhat, how should people choose what do they want to use? If they choose on the features, they might choose one. If they choose on other criteria, they might choose something else.
Yes, it's true. So the feature sets of these different tools are similar, but they're not fully equivalent. On one side, for example, on the Confluence side, you don't have the structured data functionality.
It's true. But you have the real-time editing.
But you do have the real-time editing. On the Notion side, for example, can't install it on premise. If you want to run your own servers, that doesn't exist. So
but you have structured data. But you have structured data.
But you have the structured data.
Yeah.
Now, if you're running XWiki, maybe you don't have exactly all the feature as advanced as these tools in certain area, and there's still some catch up to do. But there are also some specific features. For example, the extensibility of XWiki. The ability to customize a lot the UI, remove some features. That's actually a possibility that is almost not available in the two tools, in the two proprietary tools.
You have the history on the structured pages and the handling of the structured pages as first level citizens.
Yeah.
First class citizens.
No, you do have differences. It's and there's also specific advantages of open source. So it's important to understand these specific advantages of open source. So a lot of people here, of course, are convinced of open source already. But it's important to remind that there is reversibility, and you can choose between on-premise and cloud. And you can control your what you have. And open source is also a lot about the openness. You can actually look at the code, how it's coded, how it works. You can improve it. You can build on it. That's a lot of cultural elements of the open source world that are in these products.
Now that we're mentioning, this is actually an interesting point to make here, that having the code open is not enough to be fully called open source. You also need to have the development that is done in the open. I mean, it's just publishing the code is not enough, which sometimes happens with some of the tools.
Yes, and it's also about how you interact with the community. If you take tickets, issues, and you're listening to your users. And so there's also specific pricing risks with cloud and proprietary software, and we've seen it with Confluence.
There's lots of things that are for free today. What risks are you talking about?
Well, the thing is to always understand that a lot of the companies that are giving you things for free, either they're doing tracking. This is why also we developed CryptPad, is to protect people from tracking. But they can also have a plan in mind, is to have a lot of customers and users, and when they have a lot of users, they have their data, they control their data, that they potentially are raising the prices and trying to increase the revenue. And this is actually what we've seen in the case of Confluence, which has discontinued the lower priced on-premise offer, and multiplied by more than 4 the prices of the software if you want to keep it on premise, or they propose you migrate to cloud and then become a customer of this cloud version, which you don't know what the price will become in the future. They've already increased a lot the prices. Why would they stop? And so
we've seen a lot of the effects of that. We've seen a lot of it in the XWiki community.
Yes, because since Atlassian has announced these major changes, that over a couple of years will discontinue the software and raise the price, we have seen a lot of requests, and we actually have new customers that sponsored features to help the migration from XWiki to from Confluence to XWiki. And so we have actually invested in this in order to provide an improved migration tool. And some customers have sponsored pro macros that correspond to the Confluence macros that we have released.
So you're talking about customers and all that. So all this suite of things, all these tools are paying.
So not all, like the customers have sponsored improvements to the migration tool. They've been integrated in the Confluence migration tool that we already had, but we have indeed made payment 2 modules. One is a migration wizard, which simplifies the migration because there can be multiple steps in the migration. And we have also made paying a package of pro macros that help the migration. For example, one that converts Glyphy diagram to draw.io diagram, as we have a draw.io diagram tool in XWiki.
So these are open source but are paying.
Yeah, so we do write all this code as open source. 100% of what XWiki is writing is open source.
The code is published? No, the development is also in the open.
The development is
the
open.
Tickets and
is
all
in
that.
the open. The code is published. You can see the evolution of the code. But the only thing that we don't do is we don't package the extension as a free extension. It includes a payment system. When you want to install the extension in XWiki, you have a payment system. You have only a trial, and you can test the extension, and then you would have to pay.
So if I'm a developer from the open source community, I can build this from source, and that's it. I don't have to pay anybody.
Yes, you could. You would have to also remove the license check, the payment check in the code.
Oh, adding an if.
Yeah, because we otherwise you would still have them in if you installed exactly the same module as is.
So is this paying thing something that threatens the openness of these extensions? Should we be worried that they are paying and they're less open source or something like that?
Well, I personally believe that this is actually helping open source in this case. Is that what is a bit more dangerous with for open source is when you actually have proprietary modules that are paying and open source modules that are free. Is that you have a tendency then to make them more and more closed. Here they're still open. They're still contributing to the globality of the code, but they helping finance the open source project, and they actually help guarantee that we have the means to continue the development of the XWiki the XWiki core as open source.
So in the end, if I would be to summarize what we've seen today, we already knew, but you found that XWiki is an established platform for answering the use case of collaboration and organization of the text and structured data with its own way of doing things, that XWiki has observed the new ways of doing things or the ways that are proposed by other tools, and we are trying to see how that can be integrated, how that type of user experience can be integrated in the XWiki tools to help answer this use case that is already done. This for our current community and our current users, as well as for new users that are coming from other tools because they were deceived by some various evolutions of these tools, and also for all the people that are anticipating today and want to invest in open source solutions. Invest not as in give money for stuff to develop, but actually provide the funding that and the business that these solutions need in order to develop and in order to become major actors of this market.
So thank you very much, Anca, and thank you very much to everybody to have listened to us. So wanted also to note that this presentation has been done with open source software. We've used Ubuntu